Today I'm here to talk about the Marilyn I. Walker School of Fine and Performing Arts at Brock University. So, Brock University is in St Catharines, but the campus is a very traditional campus in terms of where Canadian campuses are relative to cities of this size, and their campus has been on the outskirts of the city up until now. So they're building a new downtown building, which is always exciting, and into this building they're putting departments which are very exciting. Dramatic arts, music, visual arts, and studies for arts and culture. And when we got this project, we were really excited because you always know when you get a group of culturally productive students and faculty together that make things that you can see and watch and just go to, that it's going to be a great building, and it's going to be a building that's going to contribute to the campus, it's going to contribute to the city. So we knew it was going to be exciting. So this is downtown St Catharines. Has anybody been to St Catharines in this? We got Craig in the back. St Catharines, it's been around for quite a while, and this is St Paul Street, which is the highest street in St Catharines. And this is an archival photograph of St Paul Street in its heyday, when it was full of fur shops and all the excitement in St Catharines happened here. And over the years, as the city's developed, and the way a lot of cities have, the amount of activity that's on St. Paul Street's decreased over the years, and the city was becoming very aware of it, and they wanted to change that. And the city started to make a significant development move, which was to get 3 new productive buildings into downtown St. Catharines. So St. Paul Street goes across here, which, as Paul mentioned, is higher up, and you'll see that a little bit as we go through. And then down here are 3 new buildings that have been built. So 2 of these are done by the architect is DiamondSchmittArchitects. So the Performing Arts Center, which is right here on the corner, which faces St. Paul Street. Pieces of it will start opening later this year, and then it will be fully open next year. Brock University's new building, which we're talking about today, which is this long, skinny piece right here. And then the Meridian Center, which is the new home of the Ice Dogs. So a big hockey rink and arena has been put in. And Meridian Center is open and functional. Brock, we're just handing over, and the university is starting to move in. And with these 3 things coming, this is one of the most significant redevelopments in a city of this size that you can find anywhere, that's happening in basically within a 2 to 3 year period. And what is happening already is St. Paul Street has more life, more activity, there's more restaurants opening, and we're talking to the faculty and the people that we're working with, and they're spending a lot more of their time on St. Paul Street already. And the story of all of this actually starts with the Canada Haircloth Company, which had this little 3-story building on the water in St. Catharines. And what you will see on this, so this side of this image is towards St. Paul Street. There's a little waterway, which we'll talk about a little bit more as we go on. And then behind it over here is now the Highway 406. What it used to be was the river going through town. And there was the waterway back in, I think, 1875. They were pulling water off of that waterway, and it came through, and that was how they were powering the factories, and they're also powering, eventually, actually, they're getting electricity from that. And now it has the highway running through. So our site is right here. And you can see it from Highway 406. So as you're driving through St. Catharines, this building actually has quite a presence from the highway. Now this is a really nice archival photograph that was found when we started working on this job. It was actually taken, it's an aerial photograph from a biplane. You can see the wings. And you can see over there is the haircloth building. And for those of you who may not know, haircloth, it was made mostly out of horsehair, but it was the stuff that was put into making such things as men's jackets. So the haircloth company was actually very successful for a very long time. And where they started out with is that little sketch that you saw earlier, which is over there. And as the company grew, they kept adding to the building. They added space on the other side of the lot. They added something in the middle. And this all happened over the course of at least 100 years. And they just kept adding to it in various ways, various qualities of building. And this is where we started when we started this job. And you can see it's a very long, skinny set of existing buildings. We spent a lot of time in that old building, learning its qualities. It had beautiful light. It had really interesting things, and we'll come back to something like this. So they had bought a piece of equipment that didn't quite fit into the building as it was. So you can see up here is where there used to be columns that went all the way to the ground, but their new piece of equipment was too big, so they put in this huge piece of steel and basically under the whole building, and then brought their piece of equipment in. There is little bits of paraphernalia of it being an industrial building. It was starting to fall apart. I mean, there were moisture issues. The wood frames in the windows were dying. There was lead paint in the building. There was a lot of stuff that we had to be aware of and look at. There was just stuff in the floor. I mean, it was both poetic and painful all at the same time. And nice little pieces like steel from England, stuff that you don't see every day. And they also, because it was built in so many different times, it was held together in so many different ways. So this was one column capital. This was another column capital. And this was yet another column capital. And then we also ran into stuff like this where somebody just made bad decisions. You can see here, at some point, somebody cut out a joist. They scabbed another piece on. They cut out pieces of joist here. So this building, as we sort of take it apart through construction, we also had to learn about it and fix it as we were putting it together again. And that was all fine and dandy, but our big task was actually trying to fit the university into it. And the university, of course, all these departments had needs and goals. They were moving from their campus, from their home into a new place. And for them, they really wanted to get the spaces that they needed to teach. They wanted better spaces than they had before. So this was a graphic of the program. And what we were looking at originally was what types of the programs that we had worked well in the existing buildings and the existing spaces that we had. So here's some of those types of spaces that were in there. So we had, in the oldest part of the building, we had these fairly open floor plates with columns down the middle, big windows both sides of the building. One of the newer pieces was this guy, which was a windowless warehouse, reasonably tall ceilings. Right at the end, that kind of gabled piece was, again, big, relatively open space. And this was the space under this guy on the ground floor. So we had all these spaces, and we're looking at the program, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to fit stuff into it. So at the end of the day, we figured out that a lot of the program we could fit in, and some of the program we couldn't. So one of the biggest pieces of program was a 250-seat theater. And that we tried to stick into various places in the old building. It never worked, so that became a piece that had to be new. And then we had to deal with, we needed some extra space. And the diagram that we ended up settling on was this, where we ended up with 65,000 square feet of renovation, about 30,000 square feet new. And so our new piece, which is this sort of taupe piece right here, was the new art gallery, because we didn't have ceilings that were tall enough anywhere for that particular aspect. And then also the new theater. And then we added a new circulation piece across the front of the building. And everything else we were reusing, so that was that warehouse space. This was the oldest part, and this is that shed at the end. And then we developed that into a sketch, and we were talking about, we had a stair that lined up, but you could look across and through it to the Schmitt Tower, which is the tallest piece of the existing campus, which is a ways away. This was the new box for the theater. This sketch was just talking about what kind of materials we were going to use. We were looking at metal panel because it had an industrial sort of heritage, and we were looking at brick masonry because we had an old brick building that was there, and talking about how you pair old and new. And the general decision was that our new building would respect the old, but it would also differentiate itself. So we can talk about that a bit more. And then that sketch turns into a nice fancy rendering, and this is what we set out to build. And we built it. So this was a picture from about a week ago, just before the gates came down. And you can see here, there's that theater poking out. And every time we were touching the building with the old building with the new, there was always sort of a gap, either a reveal or a window or something like that to go together. We had to do a lot of work on the existing building as well, so we had to insert mechanical systems and all this other stuff. So you can see over here we had a big frame that actually bridges over the entire building in order to set those mechanical units down. There was a chimney up here that was about that tall. It was actually looked better than it does now, but it was about ready to fall over. So this was about as much the height that we could structurally manage. So we had to take some chimney down. And then we also we replaced all the windows here. The windows in the old building, they had whited out the tops of them just with actually paint. I think it was more for a glare than anything else, but we respected that because everybody came to recognize that. It made it a recognizable part of the building, so we put frit on the tops of the windows everywhere. And then we filled in pieces of the old elevator, and off we went. So just a quick run through the floor plan. So you can see this is a very long, skinny building in the end. And it's a bit of a challenge as an academic building because you are moving students from one end to the other. And one of our goals is always to try to make spaces where faculty and students and people visiting the school have opportunities to see what they're doing, each other's doing, meet with each other, learn from each other. And so we had to look for opportunities in this long stretched out floor plate to do that. So we started looking at the circulation. So level 1, and we'll see a section in a minute which shows the changes in grade. So level 1, which is the main entrance under that theater piece, is right over here. We have a big plaza that comes in. This is our main lounge, which connects to our circulation, which basically runs straight through there. And so this is really becoming the heart of the building per se. And then you go up to the next floor up here, and this door heads out straight to the the Performing Arts Center. So that's at level with the lower levels of the Performing Arts Center. And as we go through the building, so level 1 has music in one end, general classrooms in the middle. We have the sewing shop and costume shop for dramatic arts at the other end. And then on the second floor, we have the big theater right here. We have studio space for primarily for performing arts. So they have appropriate floors. They have lighting grids. They're smaller studio-type spaces for teaching. We have classrooms off on the second floor here and some of the faculty offices. As we go up the building, we have faculty offices mostly on level 3. We have the second level of the theater. At level 4, we'll talk about this quite a bit. This is where visual arts primarily is. We have 2 studios that we've inserted into this existing space. And then on the top floor, they have the scenography studio, which is just an open drafting type teaching environment. So what I'm going to talk about primarily is the reuse of spaces first and how we looked at these spaces. So we had a space like this. It was big, it was open, and we had to look at the program. And so what we started talking about were, again, these studio spaces. So we had these smaller, we have studio A, B, C, and D. So they all have dance floors. So this is a picture from about a week ago. We inserted windows, so we had a connection to the outside to make them more amenable teaching spaces. We were looking at spaces like this. So these were turned into offices. This is a typical corridor now. Some of them you'll see the columns are exposed, so we've used a type of paint that fireproofs it. In other places we've hid them with drywall because it's costs us less to do that. So we have to, as we go through, we make decisions where some places we show the old building as much as we can, in other places we hide it as much for cost efficiencies at the end of the day. And the corridors, so we've kept as much of the existing wood floors as we could. They've been refinished. The floors also had a lot of metal checker plate running through them where we can only assume running their wares as they came off the machines and running on the wheels and the carts, and it was wearing out the wood floors, so they started putting down the metal plates. And we've kept those throughout the building. All the new ramps that we've put in are made out of the checker plate as well. And this is the library space. So you can see the big windows are great. Like these windows are making for amazing spaces, amazing offices. If you're a professor at Brock, you really want an office in this building. So one of our biggest challenges, going back to trying to fit the program into the building, was we ran out of big spaces, and we had to get painting and drawing studios into this building. The fine arts department had studios that they liked already, so they weren't willing to compromise in any way, and they did not want columns in their space, but the only spaces that we had left had columns in them. So going back to that notion of what they did in the haircloth building originally to get equipment in, we had to figure out ways to get rid of these columns. And we worked with Blackwell, our structural engineers, and we ended up with nice renderings that looked like this, where we had come up with this plan to get rid of the columns. And it wasn't quite as easy as that, but it was quite an interesting feat at the end of the day. So here, if you follow these red lines right here, so this is after they've already started work. So we took the ceiling out on the top floor, which had a bit of ceiling space above that as well that was just attic before. So that it opened that up, so that ceiling came out. And then the beams were there, so we came in, they started doing bracing at various portions of the building, and then we cut the beams out. So those beams were gone. We're still holding the building up, and then we're coming in with these, we called them diamond-shaped trusses. So if you look at them in plan, they actually go around the columns. So the columns that you saw in the previous shot, you can see them here, were actually sitting in the spaces where these steel came in. So they stayed in place. We're still holding up the building. We brought the steel in, installed the steel, and then started taking the columns out. And this is what they look like today, which is really great studio space. North light coming into these studios. These are really ideal. So if you want to learn how to paint, Brock's going to be a great place. And here we go. So the Performing Arts Center, which is over here. St. Paul Street is up high. So this is what Paul was talking about earlier. The back of the Performing Arts Center is down, I think, 1.5 stories. It's quite a significant grade drop. You come back to this zone, which we call it the Raceway. That's where that piece of water was coming through, which was powering the old factory. And then you'd walk into this building, which is our building. You can see here the theater, and then the art gallery, which is down here, and that takes you all the way down to this new area, which was once water. Let's see it just a bit closer. So this is our new black box theater. It's 250-seat theater. It's a teaching theater. So this piece right here is the rolling gantry. It's made for a much safer environment for students to learn how to set up lighting and set up sets. So they go up, they walk along the catwalks, and with one on either side, they roll this to the places where they need to install lights. And then when it's show time, it gets rolled back. It has a parking spot, and then the show goes on. It has fixed seating that rolls out from the back, and it pulls out, and we've got 250 seats. It is also set up for various arrangements, so they can do theater in the round and stuff like that. And the new art gallery. And then just quickly, this is the new second floor space, which is primarily there for them to put art on the walls. So as we've gone through and finished it, we've got these big walls which have plywood behind them, and they can just screw things to them, stick things to them. It'll be a great space. And then the entrance lobby, which again, places for hanging art. There's going to be some permanent art and a lot of art throughout the space. And this is that lobby space as of last week. And that's the main entrance. So this Brock's color is red. So after much debate internally, they decided that this is part of their signage. And so now when you're driving down Highway 406, you will now see this big red piece, and there'll be a Brock sign on it as well. And that's it.